Midweek edition, Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's Wednesday. We made it to Hump Day, and it's a big one tonight with Pitt taking on North Carolina on the road. Big game in Chapel Hill. They're all big games from here on out. There's no question about that. And certainly as we've seen Pitt, I don't want to say struggle, but seem to, get no traction in the net rankings and the AP poll and this and that, all the different sort of things that we look at for vindication or some sort of confirmation outside of our little bubble here. We look in all these different places for confirmation that Pitt is good, and we're not really getting it. That puts added pressure on every game to sort of make a climb in those different areas and metrics and rankings. But I think we all can agree the key is just keep winning. And that's what Pitt's going to try and do tonight when they take on North Carolina. We'll have a lot to say about that game and a couple other different topics with the Pitt basketball team. But as always, we've got to ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video. The subscribe button's right down there. That's nice and easy. Made a button for you. You just click that thing. You'll be subscribed to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You click the like button. I think it's over there somewhere. Probably down there. There's a little thumbs up. Somewhere around there. I'm never really sure where it shows up on the screen, but you see it. Click it. We really appreciate that. As we move forward with our Pitt video content here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We got a lot of stuff that we put out on Panther-Lair.com. We do these daily morning Pitt videos Monday through Friday. We do our live streams. We go live every Wednesday night at 8:30. We do some post-game shows. Tonight we're going to actually be live post-game instead of starting at 8:30. We'll probably start more around 9 or 9:30 depending on when this Pitt North Carolina game ends. And then, of course, we post like post-game press conference videos and midweek press conference videos. There was actually, if you didn't see it, Jeff Capel's press conference on Monday this week. It was really good. Jamarius Burton, too. Actually, both guys talked. Between the two of them, probably about 30-some minutes worth of talking. Burton talked for about 10 or 11 minutes. Capel talked for like about 20. And I highly recommend you check out both of them because both guys were pretty great to hear from and had a lot of good things to say that I think you'll like hearing. As a fan of Pitt basketball, I think you'll enjoy hearing from both Jamarius Burton and Jeff Capel with their comments and thoughts and reactions to on a lot of different topics. So I highly recommend you check those out. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any of our Pitt video content here at youtube.com, like I say, just click that subscribe button and you won't miss a thing. You can also turn on notifications so you get an alert every time we post a new video or we go live or anything like that. So like I say, Pitt, North Carolina tonight. And we have some thoughts on that game, but there's something else that's been on my mind a little bit lately. And kind of throughout the season, definitely recently, I think because topics along this, kind of in the orbit of this topic have come up and been discussed. And it's, quite simply, you already saw the headline of this video. It's the likability of this Pitt basketball team. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, about what makes this team so likable. And I think we would all agree it's a pretty likable team. And none of us are close personal friends with Greg Elliott or Jamarius Burton or Federico or Nate Santos or anybody. Maybe there's somebody watching this video who knows these guys personally. Most of us probably not. So we can only judge off of what we hear, what we see, what is said, what we observe. And I think most of us would probably come to the conclusion that for all the things that we might say about this team, and there are a lot to say, one thing we probably would all agree on is that they seem like a very likable team. For whatever that means, and it might mean different things to different people, but they're just a very likable team. And I've been thinking about this a lot. I was thinking about it on Saturday after the Miami game, thinking about it after we talked to Jeff Capel and Jamarius Burton on Monday, and just reading different threads on the message boards and having different conversations with people about Pitt basketball, talking to other Pitt fans, talking to other Pitt writers. I come away with this feeling that it's just a very likable team. And I wonder why. What makes them so likable? What is it about them? And so I've been thinking about it, and I think I boiled it down to a few things. The first is that they're winning. I don't think we can ever really ignore that. If they were 7-15 and 3-8 instead of the opposite, we would have a very different view of this team. If they were trending toward the same sort of outcomes and results and records that we've seen out of Jeff Capel's previous teams, if they were trending toward the same sort of outcome and results and records that we've seen basically from every team since Jamie Dixon left, we might not be talking about them being so likable. We might not be having this conversation because they'd probably be in the midst of like a 5-game losing streak or something like that. And so that I don't think can ever be overlooked. All these things are much easier to talk about, much easier to embrace when the team is winning. And so we start there, right? But that's not it. That sort of greases the skids, I guess. That sort of makes it easy to have this conversation. We're not having this conversation if they're not winning. They are. I also don't think we can overlook sort of the style of play and the way these guys play and the skill set specifically. The fact that they can shoot threes. That not only gives them a chance to be competitive and helps them win these games, but let's be honest, it's fun to watch. It's more exciting to watch a team that can fire up threes. It gives you a feeling that Pitt is never truly out of the game, and so it keeps you engaged longer and keeps you interested more and probably gets the excitement level up a bit. And, you know, the simple reality is, and we see this at all levels of basketball, we certainly have seen it in the NBA for the last, I don't even know now, 5 years, 10 years, something like that. It's more exciting when you have a team that can shoot like that. And so that's going to increase the likability a little bit too. So that's part of it. The winning and the shooting. The way they can play, the fact that they can shoot like they can. But there's more to it than that. And I think there are two other factors that enhance it. And I'm not going to necessarily put these in order of, one makes them more likable than the other. I'm going to kind of go in this order just because one we've talked about before and one I've sort of been thinking about more recently. And the one we've talked about before is just the energy this team has. And you could go back and look at the Morning Pitt that I did the day after, or whatever, the next Morning Pitt that I did after the season opener against Tennessee Martin. And I think it was called A Fun Night at the Pete because, and little did we know they'd lose 3 games in a row after that. But that first game, it was so much fun to watch. It was one of the most fun Pitt teams to watch. Not necessarily the most fun game, but watching the team themselves, the players themselves, the energy they had, the contagious energy they had, how much they genuinely seemed to be enjoying playing together. And look, the Pitt teams that we've watched over the last few years, going back to Jeff Capel's first team with Xavier Johnson and Trey McGowan's, I'm not going to sit here and say they never had fun. They had wins, and in some of their wins, I mean, they were really enjoying themselves. And so you would see that would come through. Maybe the problem was that they didn't win enough games, so you didn't see that all that often. But from this team, I think almost night in and night out, you can really sense how much they're enjoying the experience of playing together and playing for Pitt. And this is something Jeff Capel's talked about. He's talked about it a lot, and we're going to get to a point where he says, guys, I've been saying this to you like every game. These guys just really care about each other. They want to play for each other. It means something to them to lift up their teammate. They talk about things like putting the battery in the back. They try and put a battery in each other's backs. When you look at a game like Saturday, the Miami game, where Nelly Cummings doesn't make a basket in the first half, and then comes out and has a really strong second half. Makes 4 baskets, hits a 3, hits the jump shot that cuts the lead to 1, with whatever, less than a minute to go. That's his teammates carrying him. I mean, he needs a certain amount of self-confidence, but his teammates helping lift him up and keep his confidence up. Greg Elliott makes a crucial error by throwing an inbounds pass that touches on the baseline, and Miami gets the ball back at a crucial point in the game. But his teammates lift him up. They never let him get down. And he ends up making, big plays to end the game, to end up, winning the game. And I think drawing some of that confidence from your teammates, and you could go around. I mean, Blake Hinson has had, shooting slumps, scoring slumps. Greg Elliott, like I mentioned, has had scoring slumps. But they trust each other. They believe in each other. They keep passing the ball to Nate Santos to take open shots because they see the shot is open and they believe in their teammate. They believe their teammate can make the shot. They genuinely like playing together. And it seems like a silly, simple thing to say and to talk about. And again, we don't talk about this if they're not, 8-3 in conference games. But it's, even if it feels sort of Hallmark cardy, I think there's some reality to it. I think there's some truth to it. That it really does impact how they play. That if it carries over, if these guys enjoy playing with each other so much and support each other so much that it carries over to sharing the ball better, communicating better on defense, not trying to be the one guy who saves the day or not playing sort of individually out there, but playing together as a team. All those things Jeff Capel talks about, having togetherness and being connected. If it carries over to that, if the source of all those things on the court is the connection and relationships they have off the court, then I think then I think there absolutely is a connection between these guys really liking playing together and the success that they're having. When Jeff Capel tells a story about how an hour and a half, 2 hours after the Miami game, he walks into the locker room to get a drink, and there's four guys just sitting there, just four of the players just sitting there hanging out, watching TV, chatting. An hour and a half, 2 hours after the game. Now, I don't know if that had happened 4 years ago. I don't know if that happened 3 years ago. I don't know if it happened last year. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Maybe it did happen and they still only won 6 conference games. But I don't think you can totally discount the impact that off-the-court togetherness has with how they play on the court. And I think it comes through in a certain amount of energy, a certain kind of energy. And guys like Greg Elliott and Blake Hinson absolutely bring that energy. I think you get leadership from Jamarius Burton. I think Nelly Cummings provides a lot of energy and enthusiasm and passion. And I think they feed off the energy of the younger guys, of Federico and the Diaz-Graham brothers. I think that those guys bring their own sort of unique, youthful energy to it. And I think that makes it fun to watch. Obviously, when it leads to success, it's fun to watch. But I think it also makes them sort of likable. That, wow, these guys really like each other. These guys really care for each other and like playing together. That makes them kind of likable. And the one other thing I thought about on this whole likability thing, of what makes this team likable, is there's sort of this running thread through this team, and not necessarily the entire team, but a decent number of them, of guys who I think really do have something to prove. Now, almost all college athletes are going to talk about how they have something to prove, and everybody counted them out, and everybody told them they couldn't make it, and they're always, they're out to prove the haters wrong and all that stuff. I mean, like, you read it on social media all the time. I love when you see the guy who's like a 4 or 5 star recruit in high school and getting to college or going to the pros. He says that everybody's always counted me out. It's like, well, who counted you out? You were a 5-star prospect coming out of high school. You went to a top school in the SEC. And you were a number 1 draft pick. But guys, everybody's been counting you out. What are you talking about? And so that storyline gets overused, or that narrative or motivation gets overused, I think, or inappropriate or misplaced, I guess is what I would call it. But I think there are guys on this team who do have some sort of, I don't even want to call it a chip on their shoulder, but something to prove. You look at Federico, right? He's committed to West Virginia. And then West Virginia takes commitment from another big man, another junior college big man, I think. And they tell him, yeah, we'll still take you, but you're going to have to redshirt. I mean, I think they were willing to sign him, but they basically told him to go away in the nicest way possible. I mean, they didn't drop him from the class. They would have signed him, but he would come in and known before he even got to campus that he was never setting foot on the court. And so he backs off. Makes a bet on himself, turns down a sure thing, and ends up at Pitt, and he's having this success. And whether he's motivated by it or not, this is a second chance opportunity for Federico. Look at a guy like Nelly Cummings. He's been at where he was he at Bowling Green or Miami of Ohio, one of those schools, but he goes to Colgate. But he wants an opportunity to prove himself at the highest level. He's played against teams at the highest level, and he's had success against teams at the highest level. But for his final year of college basketball, he wants to come back home, play in front of his hometown crowd, and prove that he can do it at the highest level. Look at Blake Hinson, right? He goes to Ole Miss, transfers to Iowa State, doesn't play his first year at Iowa State due to, I think, what was termed a blood abnormality. They get a new coach. And in October, before the season even starts, before last season, the 2021-20, so he sits out the 2020-2021 season, right, due to a non-COVID illness, which like I say, I think was officially announced as a blood abnormality. Then prior to last season, he sits down with the new head coach at Iowa State. And however it came about, it gets announced that he quit the team. And the head coach uses that language. When I sat down with Blake, he informed me that he was quitting the team. Now, we've seen lots of guys leave teams. Leave for the transfer portal, leave mid-season, opt out became a really popular phrase in 2020 and on. I can't really think of too many times I've seen a head coach specifically say that a guy quit a team. And now Blake Hinson, has missed the last 2 seasons of basketball. Hasn't even played. I'm talking about a guy with something to prove, to show that he does belong at this level, that he could still play at this level. He's got something to prove. Greg Elliott, played, I think, 1 year with Shaka Smart at Marquette. Decides to go into the transfer portal to prove himself in a new setting. Jamarius Burton, you could even make a case about Jamarius Burton, right? So he starts off at Wichita State, where what's his name? Marshall was a wacko. An incredibly toxic environment. He ends up leaving there, goes to Texas Tech. He's there for 1 year, and his head coach leaves. And now he's sort of left stuck saying, man, if I could just get a little bit of continuity, get a little consistency, and get a bit of an opportunity in a sort of a stable situation, I can really flourish. And he comes to Pitt, and it wasn't really a stable situation last year. Jeff Capel even said it on Saturday. He thought Jamarius, or maybe said it on Monday, said he thought last year Jamarius tried to lead, and it just didn't work, so he basically just gave up trying. Well, this year it's working. He's finally got a stable situation. He's finally got a culture that he's a part of, that he's helped build, and you give him credit where it's due. He's got a culture that he's been a part of building, and a culture that responds to his leadership, and he's actually doing something. He wanted to leave something. He wanted to leave the program better than it was, and he's got something to prove. And I think you can go through and sort of see this. I mean, even a guy like Nike Sabandi, right after the whole mess with the transfer from Miami of Ohio, and then he's going to get his opportunity last year, and he gets hurt, kind of left for dead. I maybe not by Jeff Capel and his coaching staff. I think by the Pitt fan base. If not left for dead, I think there was a lot of speculation about what he'd ultimately be able to prove, and I think for himself, he probably felt like he had a lot to prove. He had a lot left to show in his career, and one final opportunity to do it. You get all these veteran guys, all these 5th and 6th year guys with only 1 year left to play, and they're out to show that they really do belong at this level, and they really can play at this level, and they really can contribute. And I think that motivation, I guess it could, in some situations, turn into sort of a selfish thing where a guy ends up pressing too much in his individual effort and trying to just do it all himself to prove whatever he wants to prove. But I think in this situation, it's sort of turned into all these guys who have experience in all these different places. Federico's been in junior college. Blake Hinson's been at Ole Miss and Iowa State. Burton's been at Wichita State and Texas Tech. Elliott's been at Marquette. Cummings has been at Bowling Green and Colgate. I mean, you have all these guys. Nike Sabandi's been at Miami of Ohio. You guys, all these guys that have been in all these different places and seen all these different things, and they're coming here and coming together for the one purpose of helping this team win. And the team really is the focus. The team really is the emphasis. Everyone's doing what they need to do within the context of the team to help the team win. And the result has been a lot of success and a team that's pretty damn likable, if you ask me. And I think a lot of people have had that same reaction, had the same kind of response to it. Now we'll see what they can do tonight against North Carolina. And North Carolina, I don't want to hear about them being down or anything like that. North Carolina's good. They're really good. Pitt barely escaped against them. The game at the Peterson Event Center the day of the Sun Bowl back on December 30th. Now they have to go to Chapel Hill and face the Tar Heels in a pretty tough spot. And you talk about having something to prove. Jamarius Burton, native of North Carolina, played high school state championship games at the Dean Dome. He's going to have something to prove in this one. And I think this whole team is going to approach every game feeling like they have something to prove. On an individual level with all the history that we just talked about, but also just as a team that is still, not getting votes in the AP poll and all these different things. And it's going to be a challenge. I think Armando Bacot, they don't have an answer for him. And he had 5 offensive rebounds in the game in December. He's probably going to put up a double-double again. I think you know that. You don't want to accept it. You don't want to, just say, oh, that's okay. He's going to get a double-double. But I think you know he's probably going to get his. What you need to do is make sure RJ Davis doesn't go crazy, or Leaky Black doesn't blow up, or any of these other guys who are really, really good. Because it is a highly talented team. But Pitt's got a few tricks up its sleeve. Pitt's got a few things it can do. It can rely on that three-point shooting from outside. It can rely on Jamarius Burton making plays when the team needs plays to be made. They don't want to press. They don't want to overdo it and play too tight. They need to play their game. But I guess I'll say this. I haven't made my pick in this game yet. I don't know who I'm going to go with in this game. I'm not sure I can pick Pitt to win this, but I will not be surprised in the least if they do. I still haven't decided yet. I still haven't written my piece for the Panther-Lair.com staff picks prediction article that we do every game. I'm really not sure. I might have to look at a couple stats, see how Carolina is defending the three maybe. I think you're going to give up rebounds to Baycott. I think he's going to out-rebound Federico. I do think they could try to use Federico a little bit more. I mean, that guy gets down the court like nobody's business. There's a lot of times after transition or defensive rebounds where he's the first man down the court. I think you could try to take advantage of that a little bit more for some easy buckets. But it's going to come down to Burton being Burton. It's going to come down to Hinton and Elliott hitting from outside. It's going to come down to Cummings making some key plays and, staying out of foul trouble, keeping those 5 guys out of foul trouble, and then bring in Nike Sabandi and Nate Santos and Guillermo Diaz-Graham as you need to, but keeping your 5 starters out of foul trouble and letting those guys make the plays to get you to win. It's fun right now. There's 9 games in the ACC schedule left, 9 games in the regular season left, and Pitt very much feels like it is in the hunt at the top of the conference. And they go down in North Carolina and they lose tonight. If it happens, it happens. I think it's, a long time ago when Pitt was consistently ranked and playing at the top of the Big East all the time, we all came to learn and understand that once you got into conference play and got to a certain point in conference play, for most teams in the league, top half of the league, even top 3/4 of the league, the rankings meant a little bit less when it came to predicting who would win and actually what you would actually call an upset. Because what really was an upset was when the road team won. That you could have a team with a better ranking go on the road and probably lose because it was just tough. It was such a competitive league. I think the ACC is really competitive this year. And, Miami goes to Pitt, Virginia goes to Pitt, and those teams lose. And, with the way the pecking order and the hierarchy has kind of come together, I don't want to say it's not a surprise. Those were exciting, thrilling victories. But that's sort of how it should go. The home team should win. The Clemson win at Pitt was a bit of a surprise. That was, a bit of an upset in terms of a team going on the road and winning in conference play. Obviously, if Pitt can go on the road and win on conference play tonight, that's going to be an upset, just like it would be, probably against the game at Miami, maybe the game at Florida State, depending on how the Seminoles are at that point. But this is the fun of it. And, let's try and all keep in mind that even if they lose, it doesn't mean, who we're all convinced that they are, that's false. They're still a pretty good team. And I think they got a good chance against Carolina. Just not sure if I can pick them to do it. We'll see. We'll see if I just decide to go for it. But we'll see what happens when we make the stat picks. And then, of course, we'll see what happens in the game tonight. Remember, when the game ends, we will be right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com for the post-game show. Make sure you tune in. Not sure what time that'll start. 9:15, maybe 9:30 if the game runs a little bit late, overtime or something crazy like that. But somewhere around there, we will be live to talk about it for an hour or so right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I don't know what time we're going to start, so make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you get an alert sent to your phone every time we go live. So you won't have to worry about missing it right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Head over and check out Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com for all the latest Pitt sports news, football, basketball, and recruiting. And yeah, enjoy the game tonight. We made it to the midpoint of the week. Hope you have a good Wednesday. Hope this game goes well for you this evening. We'll see what happens, and we'll talk about it afterward on the live Panther Lair post-game show right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And then we'll be back tomorrow morning for another Morning Pit. Get your Thursday started right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.